Unexplained Secrets of the Cursed Dorm, 7 terrifying rooms revealed to haunt your dreams forever. Emily's heart pounded like a war drum as she drove through the dimly lit streets of her college town. The familiar sights of her university were coated in shadow, twisting her memories into something sinister. Laughter echoed in her mind, the late-night escapades that once felt vibrant now gnawed at her insides. She was alone, returning to collect her things from the old dormitory, that crumbling monument of spooky tales and restless spirits. All too often, they whispered about betrayal, ghostly apparitions, and chilling disappearances, the kind of stuff that keeps you awake at night. As she parked in front of the dorm, the looming structure seemed to draw the very light from the atmosphere. Shadows danced through the grimy windows, and as she stepped out of the car, the air thickened with unease. Her friends had begged her to stay back, their faces pale with fear, but her curiosity was an insatiable beast. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open, the rusty hinges screeching like the souls trapped within its grasp. The hallway yawned before her, dim and suffocating, each creak underfoot like the worried murmurs of ghosts echoing their warnings. Room 101 had always been the center of stories. Students spoke of ghostly cries during midnight hours. Surely, she thought, it was just a legend. But the moment she placed her hand on the doorknob, a shiver crawled down her spine, and a whisper tickled her ear. Not a voice, just a sensation that something was there. She stepped inside, and the once familiar scent of wood and books was replaced by decay. She could almost taste the betrayal that seemed to linger in the air, each room painted with the gall of struggles past. As she explored, she stumbled upon room 202, where real horror thrived, the air thick with dread and the weight of secrets lurking just beneath the surface. The stories of her predecessors filled her mind like a rising tide. She couldn't help but feel watched. Every corner of the room seemed to cling, ready to twist its truth into something unrecognizable. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She pressed deeper into the hellish history of her dorm, each room a dusty diary page filled with betrayal and despair. Fear clawed at her instincts, yet curiosity drove her onward. Stumbling upon an online forum, she read chilling accounts, whispers of loyalty turned lethal, revealing a network of silence that tangled around her mind. Someone had been watching for years, turning fear into a weapon against the fragile bonds of camaraderie. As she approached the 7th room, adrenaline surged in her veins, a primal warning thrumming against her ribs. The door stood ajar, beckoning her closer with promises of dark truths. Hesitation clawed at her, the cold grip of paranoia seeping through her bones. What if stepping inside meant confronting something far more sinister than her imagination? But as she contemplated her next move, the door slammed shut behind her. Darkness enveloped her, the chilling cries of the lost rose to a haunting crescendo, echoing through the suffocating air. She gasped, grappling for breath, desperate for an escape that felt further away than ever, and she realized the shadows were closing in, ready to claim yet another soul within the cursed walls of her once beloved dorm. The world vanished into a suffocating blackness, leaving Emily trembling in the confined space of room 007. Panic clamped down on her throat, each inhalation drawing in the musty scent of rotting wood and stale air. Shadows twisted and slithered around her like a pack of predators, their intentions malevolent and tangible. She pressed her back against the wall, her heart a frantic drummer echoing off the barren surfaces. "Hello?" She called into the void, her voice shaking, sounding alien in the oppressive silence. There was no answer, only the relentless drip of water somewhere in the depths of the dorm, like a relentless reminder of time slipping away. She resisted the instinct to bolt for the door, but every rational thought crumbled beneath the weight of primal fear. Then she heard it, a soft scratching whisper, like fingernails on chalkboard. It crept through her mind, unraveling her thoughts, weaving her imagination into terror. "Help me." The voice was barely audible, but it was unmistakably human. Had someone been trapped here, just as she was now? Emily's legs moved without conscious thought, leading her deeper into the room. Each step felt like a betrayal of her instincts, but her body pushed forward as if possessed. She flicked her phone on, the light piercing a sliver through the darkness. Shadows danced around the small beam as she surveyed the room, heart racing. It was barren, save for a single desk and an old, overturned chair that sat askew as if recently disturbed. "Are you in here?" she whispered, the words trembling in her throat as panic rose like bile. The sound of scratching intensified, a raspy insistence that sent chills through her. "Help me!" A desperate echo morphed into a cacophony of overlapping voices, visions of despair, hopelessness, and betrayal intertwined in a sinister symphony. They pulled at her, drowning her in a pool of dread. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, and with sheer resolve, she pushed herself toward the desk, searching for a clue, an answer, anything that would save her from the horror that loomed ever closer. Her fingers grazed over the desk's surface, flaking paint catching under her nails. A drawer. She yanked it open. Inside lay a crumpled piece of paper, tattered, yellowed with age. The words scrawled across it caught her breath: "Trust no one. They watch." The warning throbbed ominously, and Emily felt her chest tighten. Who were they? The walls pulsed as if infused with the weight of despair, begging her to leave. As if summoned by her thoughts, the door creaked open, revealing the faintest glimmer of light from the hallway beyond. Relief surged, mixed with a surge of dread. Was it real, or was it another trick? Fingers trembling, she turned back as the whispers grew louder, an avalanche of voices colliding within her skull. Stay, join us." The words twisted together, wrapping her in a suffocating embrace. In a moment of pure instinct, Emily dashed toward the door. As she crossed the threshold, she felt an icy grip around her ankle. Panic surged through her, and she flung herself forward, breaking free of whatever had reached for her. Landing hard on the hallway floor, she turned and stared wide-eyed into room 007. The whispers faded, replaced by an eerie silence. But something had changed, an imprint on her mind, a shiver racing down her spine. She could feel that unseen gaze, lingering in sharp. Instinct urged her to flee, but doubt gnawed at her heels. Who had she disturbed? As adrenaline coursed, she glanced back at the door, half expecting it to swing open again. Would it? The invitations lingering in the air tightened around her heart. So many questions spiraled in her mind, feeding her terror. The dark stories camouflaged truths she was now in too deep to uncover alone. But just as she turned to sprint away, a chilling thought struck her: what if the dark secrets weren't just about the dorm? What if the whispers beckoned more than just her attention? "Emily," a voice shivered from behind her, colder than the shadows. Shivers cascaded down her back as dread settled in, fusing with her racing thoughts. Just who was calling her name? And what could they want from her now? Emily froze, the voice echoing deep within her, clawing at her sanity. Her breath quickened, each inhalation becoming more frantic. She turned slowly, knowing she had to face whatever was behind her, even though every cell screamed for her to run. The hallway behind her was dark, the oppressive shadows thickening, almost alive. The light from her phone flickered, illuminating the swirling blackness, but only briefly. Just enough for her to see a figure, pale, gaunt, its limbs unnaturally long. The face, if it could be called that, was almost featureless, void of eyes, but she could feel its gaze piercing through the darkness. "Emily." The voice whispered again, slithering around her like smoke, wrapping her tighter in fear. There was a sickly sweetness to the tone, a crooked familiarity that made her stomach churn. "You forgot us." "Forgot you?" Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. Memories flooded back, childhood tales her mother told of this place, the haunted dorm. Those stories, meant to scare her into staying away. They echoed in her mind, now twisted and real. The figure glided forward, the sound of dragging limbs scraping against the floor echoed like nails on a chalkboard, invading the silence. "You belong with us," it said, an unsettling promise laced with agony. Panic surged like fire through her veins, igniting her instincts. Emily stumbled backward, fists clenched, caught between fight and flight. Just as she turned to sprint away, the figure moved closer, an apparition melding with the darkness, blocking her escape. The air around her grew colder, a biting chill biting into her skin. "Join us, Emily," the ghastly voice echoed, swelling into an anguished chorus of whispers. "You can feel it, can't you? The truth? The truth? What truth?" The question spun like a tornado in her mind, but she didn't want to find out. Not like this. In an act of sheer desperation, she swung her phone at the figure, the light catching it in an almost surreal glow. But instead of retreating, it seemed to absorb the light, growing closer, the shadows around it writhing like tortured souls grasping for freedom. "Run!" screamed a voice from the depths of her memory. She didn't recognize it, but instinctively, she followed the command. Emily turned and fled down the hallway, her footsteps pounding against the floor, heart thrumming in her chest, drowning out the whispers. She twisted around corners, desperately seeking an escape. The dorm seemed to shift around her, hallways merging and doors appearing and disappearing, creating a nightmarish maze. The shadows taunted her, inviting her back to room 007 where her fears waited, simmering with hungry anticipation. "Emily." The voice gained strength, blending with the cacophony of twisted souls, now more insistent, demanding. "We're waiting for you." Panic shot through her as she caught a glimpse of a door ajar further down the corridor, a light spilling out. She sprinted toward it, praying it wasn't another illusion. With one powerful shove, she crashed through the door into a dimly lit room filled with old, dusty furniture and half-covered mirrors. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she spun to lock the door. The flickering light cast shadows that danced along the walls, shapes contorting into dark pasts. She could hear the whispers clawing at the edges of her mind, rising above her frantic heartbeat. But she wasn't safe yet. As she leaned against the door, trying to steady her breath, something glimmered in the corner of her eye. A mirror stained and cracked seemed to call to her. Its surface rippled, and Emily watched in horror as hands began to emerge, clawing at the edges, pulling a face through the surface. It was one she recognized all too well, her own. "Join us," it echoed in unison. An icy finger of dread coiled around her heart, squeezing as the sinister invitation slithered through the air. How many others had faced this? How many had been lured to this cursed dorm? As Emily staggered back, her reflection laughed, a sound tinged with madness. The truth of room 007 was creeping closer, and now, it was ready to claim her too. What would she choose? The escape of truth or the embrace of the dark? A piercing scream erupted from the mirror, and the shadows surged toward her once more. And then darkness ensued. What would happen to Emily when all choices became entwined with the cursed secrets of the dorm? Emily's heart thudded in her ears, a deafening drum that synchronized with the pulse of terror coursing through her. She couldn't escape the haunting laughter of her own reflection, pulsing like a heartbeat behind the cracked glass. The shadows crawled towards her, enveloping the room in a frigid embrace, the air thick like molasses as despair wrapped around her. Gathering what little strength she had left, she wrenched her gaze away from the mirror. She sprinted to the nearest window, a desperate thought flickering in her mind. Maybe she could leap and escape this nightmare. With trembling hands, she yanked it open. Cold night air rushed in, but it was too dark to see how far the drop was. Behind her, the shadowy figure drew closer, limbs stretching impossibly as it pulled itself from the darkness. "Escape is an illusion, Emily," it crooned, the voice a twisted echo of her own fears. "You are ours now forever." She couldn't let it touch her. With a cry, she lunged for a heavy piece of furniture, a rickety wooden chair. Swinging it wildly toward the figure, she shouted, "Get away from me." The chair clattered against the wall, splintering as the figure recoiled, the shadows shrieking at the disturbance, but the moment of reprieve was fleeting. The whispers grew louder, the air charged with a sinister energy that made every hair on her body stand on end. "You can't run forever," they hissed, weaving in and out of her mind, a litany of despair that clawed at her resolve. Emily retreated further into the room, looked desperate to find another way out. Her back pressed against the wall, she eyed the door. "Think, Emily." She fumbled for logical thoughts, grounding herself in the chaos. The remnants of childhood stories flooded her mind. Tales of the spirits of the dorm, trapped between worlds. What if they were waiting for her to join them, to take her to a place beyond fear? Suddenly, something caught her eye again: the mirror. Her heart sank, but she couldn't ignore it. Slowly, she approached, half terrified, half curious. What awaited her there? The reflection of her haunted self stood motionless, lips curling into a smirk. The longer she stared, the more she felt a pull, as if every ounce of fear was being siphoned away, replaced by an unsettling calm. "Come, Emily, you know you want to be with us," her reflection chimed, serpent-like. "You can live in the past, where no one can touch you." She gripped the edge of the mirror, her breath hitching as she considered it. Could she find solace in joining the lost souls? The truth throbbed at the back of her mind, nearly drowning her in a fog of confusion. But then the door banged against the wall, shattering the moment. A surge of shadows poured in, rushing toward her. Emily panicked, her only thought to escape. She turned and bolted back toward the door, managing to swing it open just enough to squeeze through. The corridor welcomed her like an old friend, dark and twisted but alive. As she raced down the hallway, she could feel the cold breath of the entity behind her, relentless and hungry. "You can't escape, Emily." The echoes of her name crescendoed into a cacophony. Just ahead, another door loomed in sight, this one marked with eerie writing that crawled along its edges like thorny vines. Room 002. A chill ran through her. Had she ever been here before? Instinct drove her onward, and she pushed through the door. Inside, the air grew thick and suffocating, warped and distorted. The room shimmered with a strange light that felt almost alive. Complacent shadows bobbed from one side to another, whispering secrets that scratched at her mind, but she pressed on. In the center, an ancient journal lay open, inked pages curling as if they were reaching out for her. Closer still, she could make out names, each one of them marked with the same hopeless despair she felt creeping into her soul. What was this place? She reached for it, trembling, when suddenly, a warning voice thudded in her mind. "Do you know what you're unleashing?" Nightmares flickered in and out. Who was providing the warning? And what could it mean for her? A shadow loomed at the far end of the room, gathering speed. Emily turned, the truth dawning like a storm above her head. She had to make a choice. Footsteps echoed behind her, closer and closer. Would she take the plunge into dark secrets held within this ominous room, risking everything to uncover the truth, or could the truth be her undoing? A decision hung precariously in the air, fear dancing on the edges of her fading consciousness like fireflies in the night. And as the figure rushed towards her, Emily knew she could no longer afford to hesitate. What if it was too late to turn back? Emily's fingers trembled over the ancient journal, each name etched into its pages a silent scream from the past. She could barely make out the last entries, stories of despair, of souls lost somewhere between life and death. A chill rolled over her, and she glanced over her shoulder, expecting the shadow to be behind her, closer than ever, but to her shock, the room felt frozen in time. The shadow loomed at the door, hesitant, pulsing with dark energy. It was as if it was waiting for something, drawn to the book, feeding off her fear. Instinctively, she took a step back, clutching the edges of the journal, unsure whether to cling to its secrets or close it forever. "What is your name?" Her voice shook as she directed it toward the figure. Would it respond? Would it reveal its intentions? Names are for the living. Emily had lowered its voice to a whisper, almost seductive. You don't need a name where you're going. Emily's heart raced, and the weight of the journal felt heavier, as though it was pressing against her, urging her to open it. She forced herself to look down, tracing her fingers over the ink. Suddenly, one name stood out, Sarah West. The ink wasn't faded but fresh, glistening in the dim light. Who was Sarah West? The name sent a shiver through her spine, tinged with an unsettling familiarity that ignited her curiosity despite her fear. What happened to her? Emily murmured, half to herself. Set her free, the Shadow's voice curled around her, a noxious whisper that provoked every dread she'd ever known. Only you can unleash her from this imprisoning page. The words pierced through the air, thick with foreboding urgency. Emily felt compelled, a magnetic pull toward the journal, but the cold touch of danger still lingered behind her. Whoever or whatever was waiting in the hallway seemed to sense her wavering resolve. Don't listen to it, a new voice suddenly echoed in her mind, deeper and more guttural. The truth is buried here, but it will consume you. With strained breath, she stepped fully into the room, the doors slamming shut behind her. No way out. The shadows thickened, and the sensation of being watched prickled her skin. Panic clawed at her chest. What do I do? She whispered. What do I need to do to help her? At that moment, a powerful gust swept through the room, snatching the journal from her grip. It tumbled to the ground, pages flaring open like wings, revealing more names crawling along the edges, names that felt oddly relevant. You must choose, Emily. The shadow grew bolder, whispering vile promises. Embrace the darkness. Let it in. Only then will solace be found. No. The word escaped her lips like a scream. She rushed forward, snatching the journal up, her fingers trembling violently against the curses that seemed to crawl off the pages into her consciousness. But the moment she lifted it, shadows erupted around her, swirling like a maelstrom. The ground trembled beneath her feet as echoes of laughter rose to drown out her thoughts. Desperate, she cracked the journal open again, searching for some sign to guide her. The walls constricted, the air thickening. She felt trapped in a tightening vice. Join Sarah, the shadow snarled, and the atmosphere shifted. Emily saw visions flash before her, Sarah's joy, then despair, her eyes wide with terror, trapped in the very stories she now gazed into. A new wave of energy rippled in the room, disorienting her. Faces materialized out of the shadows, trapped souls desperately clawing for release. Their whispers filled her ears. Set us free. As shadows entwined around her, choking her resolve, Emily clutched the journal tighter. Get out. Find the truth. The deeper voice roared again, determined and furious. Don't become their vessel. The weight of their urging swelled inside her, clashing against the suffocating shadows. She was pushed to the edge. She had to decide: sink into this darkness, or force her way back to the light. Her heart thundered, choices spinning in a whirlwind of dread. But in the eye of the storm, she felt it, a fleeting glimmer of hope. All it took was one decision. One name. What if she did uncover the truth? What if it held the key to saving both Sarah and herself? But as the voices crescendoed, urging her deeper, the shadows surged closer, clawing for her. Could she confront what lay ahead, or would she succumb to their relentless embrace? Outside, thunder rolled ominously, promising that whatever lay next would be far worse than what she had just endured. Emily's heart pounded, each beat echoing the frantic whispers swirling around her. She knew she had to act, but choices slipped through her fingers like grains of sand. The journal lay open before her, its pages a chaotic tapestry of names, some long forgotten, others still vibrant like Sarah West. Set her free. The chorus of the souls imprisoned swelled, their whispers merging into a sickening symphony that drowned reason. Sarah, she gasped, her throat dry. What will it take? Suddenly, the shadows pulsated, a wall of dark tendrils sweeping toward her as if drawn by an unseen force. Panic surged. She fought against their grasp, the journal steadying her, a flickering hope in the maelstrom. With trembling hands, she flipped through the pages, desperate for an answer. Reveal the truth. She cried out, her voice nearly swallowed by the darkness. Let me see it. The air grew thick, suffocating. Then, as if acknowledging her plea, the ink on the page shifted, forming a new entry. It wasn't just a name. It shifted into words, details flooding her mind, compelling images filled with dread. Emily saw visions of a girl, Sarah, laughing in the sun, then plunged into despair as shadows entwined around her. A cold chill crawled up Emily's spine. The shadows around her twined tighter, their whispers louder, more insistent. "Set us free, set her free!" The cries of the lost souls erupted into a cacophony, a wall of noise that surged over Emily, maddening and relentless. As the journal's words raced through her mind, she saw Sarah's plight. A tragic tale of betrayal and anger, shackled by spells bound to the earth. Emily's heart sank. If Sarah was still trapped here, what did that mean for the others? With a sudden surge of determination, Emily understood. The names in this book weren't just names, they were bonds. Each one was tied to a life that had ended in this darkness. Each one was calling to her. "I want to let you take me," she shouted, her voice a scream against the void. "You have to let her go." But the shadows responded, churning in chaos. The deeper voice reverberated again, shaking her bones. "You must choose, Emily. One life for another. Sacrifice to free them." Emily stumbled back, nearly falling as she locked eyes with the shadow looming closer. "No more sacrifice. I'll break this curse." Clutching the journal like a lifeline, she scanned for a solution, her mind racing. Suddenly, a name flashed across her vision, a hint, a promise. William Thorne. The ink burned bright, and she whispered it into the suffocating blackness, hoping for a miracle. "What do I do to save you, too?" At that invocation, something shifted. The air thickened, and the shadows screeched in protest, recoiling for just a second. Hope surged within Emily. "Give me the power to release you," she cried. The shadows convulsed, swirling violently. Emily gripped the journal tighter, sweat beading on her forehead as a sudden rush of energy coursed through her fingers, burning hot against the pages, and then she felt it, an echo of herself, a flicker of strength surfacing. "You want freedom," she told the whispers. "Then you have to fight to be free." She plunged deeper into the energy swirling around her, weaving through fear and determination, but as the shadows pressed in again, shrill and hungry, uncertainty clawed at her gut. Was she ready to fight the unknown? What awaited her if she did? Just then, the howl of the storm outside crescendoed, lightning slicing through the darkness, illuminating the faces of the trapped souls in haunting clarity. "Help us!" they wailed, the echoes drowning in a dire chant that wrapped itself around her spirit. As the maelstrom reached its peak, Emily took a deep breath, resolution flooding her veins. She had made her choice. But at what cost? The room shook violently, the shadows screaming as they surged to claim her, desperate to reclaim their hold. Was she strong enough to confront them and step into the darkness, or would it consume her entirely? With one last glance at the swirling pages, Emily rushed forward, ready to embrace the fate that awaited. But she couldn't shake the feeling that her choices would only lead to deeper horrors yet to unfold. Emily plunged into the swirling darkness, the journal clenched in her hands like a talisman against the encroaching void. The shadows recoiled for just an instant, and in that fleeting moment, she felt a wave of heat and energy coursing through her veins, granting her a pulse of power. A strange calm settled, burying the panic beneath layers of resolve. "Show me," she cried, summoning the strength of her convictions. Her voice cracked, but it resonated high against the howling whispers. As if responding to her command, the shadows around her formed into a visage, a reflection of Sarah's anguish twisted into grotesque forms. The faces morphed, a grotesque pantomime of grief and longing. With a deep breath, Emily focused on the journal. She needed to find a way to sever these dark connections. "William Thorne," she repeated, feeling the name burn in her throat, pushing back against the howling despair. "If you hold the key, then show me." The pages of the journal fluttered wildly, ink swirling until words sealed into place. She read quickly, driven by adrenaline and fear. They spoke of ancient rites, rituals that demanded sacrifice, yet offered fragmented hope. Each passage was bathed in blood, sealing deals and breaking bonds of both love and hate. Emily's mind raced, realizing she was standing on the precipice between the living and the lost. The specters cried louder, their voices mixing into a terrifying symphony. You must trust. They screamed, their faces shifting in painful agony. You are the chosen one. With a fierce determination burning within her, she focused on Sarah's story, the betrayal that bound her, the dark magic that ensnared her soul. Emily felt the weight of the other names, their lives hanging in limbo, shadows in a world that refused to break. Enough! She shouted, her voice rising above the cacophony. Sweat dripped down her cheek as the shadows clawed at her skin, desperate to draw her into their abyss. I will not trade lives. I will find another way. A thunderous growl erupted from the depths of the shadows, anger vibrating in the air. You think you can fight us? You think you're strong enough? It echoed, corralling the whispers into a formidable roar. Emily's heart raced. She could feel the power pulsating in her hands as the journal glowed, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. If this is a fight for souls, she gasped, then let me fight. Time warped, seconds felt like eternities as she felt something shift within, a tether strengthening to Sarah, to the other lost souls. She gathered her breath, igniting a fire within the hazy folds of her mind. Let them go. Let her go. Her voice trembled but steadied as she felt the grip of freedom or a promise of it form around her heart. The shadows shrieked in horror, retreating momentarily as if recoiling from her strength. But Emily knew she couldn't relent. The visions flashed before her eyes like ghosts, a party, laughter, friendships turned to ash, and betrayal at the core, and then she saw it, a singular thread, pulsing with a faint light. William, she whispered, letting the name roll across her tongue, searching for the deeper truth. Is this your gift? Emerging from the fray, the tether seemed to wrap around her, linking her to Sarah, but also to the darkness itself. It was a lure, a trap that promised connection but hinted at loss. Emily sensed the risk. Was she bringing Sarah back, or would it seal her fate in the process? As if sensing her uncertainty, the shadows lunged at her, hungry for despair, eager to reclaim what they believed was theirs. The voices blurred, a maddening clamor threatening to engulf her. Join us! They cried, their desperation palpable, reverberating deep into her bones. Emily closed her eyes, steeling herself. Her heart raced. I will break this! She yelled, defiance igniting in her chest. But inside her swirled questions. What was she truly willing to sacrifice to save them? The shadows surged forward again, an unrelenting tide. As she tapped into the energy of the journal, she realized the truth wasn't just about names. It was about choices and the cost of breaking the chains of despair. This isn't the end. She screamed, but as the wave crashed down, her scream echoed a challenge thrown into the dark, and then, everything broke loose. The shadows clashed against the light, sending shockwaves through the room. Emily felt the world shift and tremble. What was left standing on the other side of the chaos? Would they be free, or would they be swallowed whole by the very darkness they sought to defeat? The darkness swallowed her whole, the chaos swirling like a storm. Emily had felt the shadows' rage course through her, a searing reminder of what she was up against. She braced herself, the journal's glow lighting a path through the suffocating pitch. It was a fragile light, and she could not let it flicker out. Focus, she told herself, her own voice a mere whisper swallowed by the storm around her. The faint sound of Sarah's laughter drifted into her mind like a haunting memory. Was it truly a reminder of joy, or a cruel mockery amid the anguish? She couldn't tell anymore. With trembling hands, Emily opened the journal again, searching for the words that might save them all. Each turn of the page felt like burying herself deeper into quicksand. She needed to move, to act, but the howls grew louder, more insistent. Join us! Join us, they begged, a chorus of despair swirling around and snaking into her heart. Suddenly, more images broke through, snippets of life trapped within the ink. It was never just about Sarah. She could see the faces of others, the desperate souls consumed by darkness, their eyes pleading for release. This wasn't just a fight for one person, it was a battle for many. Don't look back, she reminded herself. But her heart twisted. Was it guilt or strength that propelled her? Every flicker of hope felt like a weight pressing down harder. Could she handle the truth behind William Thorne? The names echoed in her mind. Each one carried a life, a story intertwined within the cursed tapestry of the dorm, and then, whispering at the edges of her consciousness, came the truth. The price must be paid, it hissed, echoing through the shadows like a promise wrapped in malice. No! She shouted, fury igniting within her. I will not pay your price. Her words reverberated in the chamber, and the shadows recoiled, a moment of silence crashing like a stillness before a storm. With renewed determination, Emily sought the heart of the curse. She fueled her resolve with every ounce of power the journal bestowed. The light within it flared, meeting the encroaching shadows, illuminating twisted faces locked in eternal suffering. They weren't just lost, they were trapped in a cycle of torment, but as the energy surged, she could feel the presence of something older, something lingering just beyond her perception, a force nameless yet menacing. It pulsed like a dark heartbeat, thrumming with intent, craving the fear that radiated from her. Break free! She cried, though doubt gnawed at her. Was she strong enough? Every ounce of fear and anguish she carried felt heavier, dragging her down as the shadows gathered, ready to consume her. Breathless, she focused on the thread connecting her to Sarah. You are not alone. She shouted, I am here. Light streamed from the journal, wrapping around her, tethering her to the world of the living. But with that tether came a price. A shrill scream pierced the void, a chilling sound of anguish that clawed at her heart. Sarah's face materialized in the dark, twisted with sorrow and longing. Help me, Emily. If she reached out too far, would she lose her? Would the tether snap back, consuming her in its wake? Trust. The shadows echoed, their voices dripping with deceit, mingling with the frantic rhythm of her heartbeat. Emily clenched her teeth. I will not give up. She vowed, hanging on to hope like a lifeline. She felt the connection between Sarah and the journal pulse with intensity, but the approach of darkness insisted that she embrace despair. As the shadows converged, a single figure emerged from the void, a silhouette of William Thorne, his eyes hollow, a smirk creeping over his lips. You think you can save them? There are costs to be reckoned with, he taunted, stepping into the glow. What have you done? Emily yelled, focusing her will to hold her ground against the rising dread. William's laughter slashed through the air. You're fighting against eternity, dear Emily. Let them go, or suffer their fate. The glowing thread connecting her to Sarah flickered, threatening to snap under the weight of his words. Fear twisted in her stomach, icy fingers creeping along her spine. She had to make a choice. Would she risk everything to hold on or let go? And just like that, the shadows surged again, furious and relentless. The darkness lurked, casting long fingers toward her, hungry for the light she fought so hard to protect. The air crackled with tension as Emily prepared to battle against the horrors closing in. What would she decide when her heart was weighed against the shadows? Would her last stand be the dawn that could shatter the curse, or the end that would drown them all? The shadows writhed like serpents, fluttering around Emily as if they were alive, feeding off her fear. William Thorne advanced, his presence darkening the chamber even further. Emily clenched the journal to her chest, feeling the heartbeat of the light pulse against her body. It was a soft comfort that stood defiantly against the dark chaos surrounding her. Give in, Emily, he taunted, his voice a chilling whisper, each word dripping with disdain. You think you can fight me? You think the light can save you? It cannot. The echo of his laughter sent shivers down her spine. She searched the journal for a clue, a way to turn the tide. Each page held a history of pain, but there had to be a solution amidst the anguish. She pressed her fingers against the yellowed paper, feeling the energy thrumming beneath her touch, and she screamed a desperate prayer into the darkness. I will not let you take her. With each second, William's smirk grew. You're keeping the flame alive, but that will only lead you to ruin. You can't save a shadow. Maybe you're right, she countered. But I'd rather fight than let you decide my fate. As if in response, the air around her thickened, coiling tighter around her throat. Shadows pulled at her limbs, whispering insidious threats. "Join us! Join us!" They lunged forward, fingers stretching and curling as they brushed against her skin, chilling her to the bone. Time stretched. Emily felt the urgency building within her. Each heartbeat resonated against the silence, a drumbeat of impending doom. She could not succumb to despair. Clenching her eyes shut, she focused. The glow of the journal brightened, illuminating the darkness in brief bursts. She pictured Sarah, alone, terrified, and she felt her resolve harden. "Hold on, Sarah. Just hold on." The shadows screamed, a cacophony of rage echoing through the chamber. They recoiled from the beacon of light, but William remained, locked in place, a fixture of malevolence. He watched her struggle with an amused, twisted glee. "Some things can't be undone," he warned, stepping closer. "You've attracted their attention, and now they want a taste of your fear." A chill pierced through her, and she cast a glance around the claustrophobic space. The air shimmered, shifting, and then she saw them, faces pressing from the darkness, anguished eyes filled with sorrow and pain, each one a story lost to the void. "What do you want?" she screamed, her voice high and trembling. "What can I give you?" A whisper darted out from the countless faces. "The price is you. I want tea," she cried. In that moment, she felt the tether to Sarah flicker erratically. A flash of uncertainty swept over her. Should she choose to save herself or fight for Sarah? Could she withstand the darkness's demands? William's laughter surrounded her like a thick fog, suffocating and cruel. "You think you can withstand what you don't understand." But something inside shifted. She realized this wasn't a fight only for Sarah, but for all those trapped beneath Thorne's dark legacy. The journal had a purpose, a guide buried within its ink, a path through the fog. She needed to peer deeper. With trembling resolve, she breathed in deeply, stirring the flames within her. "No more!" Emily shouted. "You will not have me nor anyone else." The shadows surged forward, but she stood her ground, drawing upon the light of the journal. The very fundamental force of will surged through her as the journal exploded with power, casting forth beams of iridescent light that raced ahead to push back the darkness, but just as hope ignited, the figures and the shadows coalesced. A monstrous figure reached out, its hand like a claw, sharp and hungry for her light. "I warned you, Emily," William hissed with twisted satisfaction, stepping back into the void, waiting for the inevitable tragedy, and in that moment, caught between light and darkness, Emily understood the stakes were far higher than she imagined. Tears of fury mixed with terror rolled down her cheeks. Would she sacrifice everything to shatter the curse of the dorm, or would the shadows bend her to their will? As the light surged within her, the climax hung in the air, tantalizingly close. The question solidified, pressing against her heart like a vice. What would she do when faced with the darkest choice of all? Emily's heart thundered as she pushed against the shadows that threatened to consume her, her frantic breath echoing in the frigid air. The journal pulsed with light, a fierce beacon amidst the encroaching darkness. She gritted her teeth. This was not the end, not when Sarah and all the souls trapped within these walls hung in the balance. "Set them free!" she screamed, the words bursting forth like a dam breaking. The shadows recoiled, an anguished shriek filling the air. She could feel their wrath, a tempest of anger swirling around her, but she held her ground. Each tether she shared with the spirits tied them together in a web of shared despair, and it had been nurtured by fear for far too long. "Do you really think you can break this curse?" William Thorne's voice was an icy blade cutting through her resolve. He loomed closer, whispering promises wrapped in deadly threats. "You cannot fight eternity, Emily." But she would fight, fueled by the flicker of hope embedded in her heart. "I'll fight for those who can't," she roared defiantly, the energy of the journal surging through her. As the light intensified, she felt a connection deepen with every name scrawled on its pages, a lifeline drawing her into an embrace of shared pain and loss, the air crackled with tension, as if the walls themselves held their breath. The shadows lunged again, this time a tide of despair that reached out with tendrils grasping at her wrists, her throat, tightening with their chilling touch. Panic clawed in her chest, doubt wormed its way into her mind. Remember, your essence is what they want. A voice roared from the depths of her awareness, fighting against the whispers of doubt. Remember your strength. With a deep inhalation, Emily absorbed that strength. Her scream cut through the din, raw and unyielding. I am not afraid of you. She shouted, light exploding from the journal into blinding rays. Sarah, I'm here, I will save you. The shadows wailed as light illuminated the cavernous space. In that luminescence, Emily caught a glimpse of their true forms, lost souls twisted in agony, their faces torn between yearning and hatred. Sarah's face, distorted with anguish, flickered to the forefront. Help me. Break the bonds. She pleaded, and Emily felt her own heart go still. I won't abandon you now. She promised vehemently. With each fierce beat of her heart, she pushed back against the darkness, a tide of golden light flowing from her. No. William screamed, a rift trembling at the surface of his form as he retreated from the light. You think you can destroy what is eternal. He recoiled, but the shadows around him rippled as he fought against the encroaching glow. But Emily felt a rising power swell within her, a determination cemented through the journal. A force thrummed through her core, tapping into everything she had suffered, and it blossomed in every corner of her being. You may be eternal, but you're only as strong as the fear you foster. A fierce determination surged through her. She raised the journal high, the pages flaring forth in a radiant swirl of energy, illuminating the space until it felt like daybreak. Together, we will break the curse. She felt the connection binding her to the spirits solidify. Sarah and the rest joined hands in an ethereal dance of light against the shadows. The darkness erupted, twisting and recoiling away from the brilliance illuminating the room. Set her free. Set them free. Emily bellowed, her voice a clarion call that cut through the darkness. Light exploded in cascading waves, shattering the hold of despair that had seeped through the dorm for so long. With every breath she took, every word she screamed, Emily felt the bonds unraveling as the energy coursed through her. Suddenly, it happened. One by one, the names in the journal began to glow, and with them, the spirits responded, shimmering like stars breaking through the night sky. You are free. Emily shouted, and a collective cry of joy echoed through the chamber as the oppressive shadows screamed in agony, dissolving into nothingness. As the last remnant of darkness faded, a profound silence enveloped her. Trembling, Emily lowered the journal, its pages flapping softly in the now clear air. Sarah stood before her, radiant, free from the shackles of despair. You did it, she whispered, tears shimmering in her eyes. You saved us all. Emily's heart swelled, pride filling the hollow spaces once occupied by fear. But how do we move forward? She questioned, glancing around at the remnants of the past, still haunted yet somehow more tangible. Sarah smiled softly, by remembering. By forging new paths free of shackles. You broke the curse, but the road to healing is long. Let us help those who remain lost. The journal gleamed faintly, a glimmering reminder of their fight and the tales of sorrow it carried. Each soul reclaimed, every flicker of light restored, painted a path toward a new dawn. As Emily stepped out of the dorm, the sun broke through the horizon, pouring warmth and color over everything. Behind her, the echo of laughter sparked amidst shadows. Memories transformed into beacons of hope. Goodbye, Emily. Thank you, Sarah whispered as she dissolved into the light, transforming into a radiant point of existence that would guide others lost in the dark. With one last glance at the old building, Emily felt the shackles of fear snap away, and with the dawn before her, she stepped forward. Her heart soared, ready to embrace the life ahead, armed with the knowledge that they were never truly lost. If she could face the darkness, others could too. And she would make sure they never walked that path alone again. Now was the time to share her story, her truth. So here's the deal, friends. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, you know it matters. And flood that comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. That's right, every single one of your voices counts. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this massive conclusion. US all true fans, and your support keeps us alive.